It's time to get started. All right. So
Like I peeped.
let's let
That was
folks
funny.
in from the waiting room. I know you've been waiting patiently here on the Zoom call. Hello, everyone, Facebook and YouTube, out on the internet. It's going to be a very fun show today. Um, Very
We thought
excited for our guest today. Incredible talent, unique individual, and appreciate everyone showing up in the audience there today. We're starting a minute late, so we'll get right into it pretty quick. I'll get some intro material, explain the show as I typically do. Again, if you're out there just kind of running across this on YouTube or Facebook, we'll give you some info as to the show, and we'll get started here with the program. We'll have some music today. We'll have some fun interview content. I'm going to spotlight myself now as we get into the intro, and then I'll spotlight our guest for today as she becomes ready to participate. So let's quickly introduce the program. This program is called Piano Tech Radio Hour, and what we do is we meet here every Saturday to learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world. This includes maybe manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments. We we go take a wide scope and talk to lots of interesting people, but our core is those piano technicians who this all started with about 4 years ago. Our mutual goal is to become better at our crafts, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses. This is an online learning resource that brings you cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more about that at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You can subscribe to this program called Piano Tech Radio Hour for just $16 a month. And what you get for that is direct access to each week's private Zoom call, the one that we're doing right now. And you also get access to archival recordings of over 200 episodes in our member area. That's over 4 years worth of content. You can join PTRH by going to bit.ly/join PTRH, bit.ly/join PTRH. There's some other things you should know about before we get started. Of course, remember we actually have a podcast version of this program, audio only. So it's a little bit limited access, but it's really great for those of you that love podcasts. You can listen while you drive around, working in the shop, lifting weights, doing dishes, trying to go to sleep. Hopefully, we don't put you to sleep, but if we do, maybe that's an advantage to you. I don't know. But check out the podcast, pianotechradio.com. What's what's great about that is we've gotten all this wonderful exposure to what we do here all over the world. We've got fans everywhere from South Africa to Belgium, France, Germany, the Philippines. And it's really been impressive. We reached top status in a lot of those places, maybe even the #1 podcast various weeks. Pretty cool in the performing arts category. Also, check out our Substack blog, pianotechniciansmasterclass.substack.com. Follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Usually it's something like at Piano Tech Masterclass. And yeah, join the conversation with us each week. I'm going to start introducing our guest for today. I'm going to go ahead and add a spotlight to her video, and she'll be entering the scene. There she is. Hello, Rachel. Um, so today we are thrilled to have Rachel Flowers. Rachel is a truly remarkable multi-instrumentalist and composer. Rachel's talents have earned her recognition from legends like Greg Lake, Keith Emerson, and Herbie Hancock. Starting her musical journey as a child, Rachel quickly mastered multiple instruments and genres. She began classical piano at age 4 and was already exploring jazz by age 9, inspired by icons like John Coltrane and Miles Davis. Beyond the piano, she's skilled on the flute, guitar, bass, saxophone, and Chapman Stick, if you've even heard of that fascinating instrument. Her journey was also featured in the award-winning documentary Hearing is Believing. You check her out at rachelflowersmusic.com and various social media platforms. Rachel, welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour.
Hi, how are you doing?
Excellent. It's a thrill to have you here. if people aren't aware of you, they need to go check you out and check out your fascinating story. I think the documentary, I haven't seen it yet, but that would also be a great way to fill people in. But for just kind of general context here, tell
Mhm.
us about getting started early as a musician. I mean, we found out that you started at age 4. Um,
Piano lessons. Well,
what was it pretty clear that you were going to be a musician at that point, or did it kind of evolve over the next few years, this idea that music was such a huge part of your life?
I think when I was very little, I've always loved listening to music. Can you hear me just fine?
Hey, you're just great. Yeah.
Okay. Um, when I was 2.5, was it an upright piano? Yeah. My mom's in the room here too, so
Yep.
Mom Jeannie Flowers. Hi. Hi.
Hello. Hi, Jeannie.
Hello. Hi. And there was a sort of this upright, like an out of tune upright, Yeah.
Okay.
and I was banging on the. I don't remember the whole story, but I think I was banging at the piano.
Hmm?
My mom took me gently from to the piano and took my hands and taught me how to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And then I think I figured out a lot of stuff. I would listen to music from people like, well, the composers like Bach and Beethoven. I would also listen to TV themes. So I wasn't. This was before listening to TV shows or movies with descriptive audio, so there wasn't a lot of variety on that compartment. So the I think the one thing that I got from listening to TV shows was the opening theme music that had all these different melodies, and I would memorize them by ear on the piano, like stuff like Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Next Generation was another favorite. Um,
Nice.
yeah, Theodore, the tugboat. Theodore.
That's I love that. And I caught a video of you recently, a clip, and you seemed relatively young. I don't know, somewhere between maybe 6 and 10 or something. And you're hanging out with Ray Charles, like playing him a little bit of piano, and he's like super impressed.
Yeah, that was when
Um,
I was 10. And my voice sounded tiny back then. It was like, I'm 10 years old.
how did that type of a situation come about? It sounds like you
Oh,
started to gain attention pretty early on as well as kind of like a an interesting phenomenon.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's pretty wild because I was just about to talk about my many piano teachers.
Hmm.
Uh, the first one, who sadly is no longer with us this year, his name was Grant Horrocks, and he was the one that got me started on. Let's make sure that I play on a perfectly tuned piano and learn about posture, sitting up straight, curving the fingers, and just longevity, basically. And so that was Grant. And then David Pinso, who's still with us, and he's the one that introduced me to Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder, and he also showed me how to record music with technology. So he was able to create an accessible way to navigate recording technology. Like I was there when he was working on the cake talking. I was using a Windows computer at the time with the screen reader JAWS, which is something you have to buy,
Mm.
and he would show me like, is this a piano sound? And I would listen to it, and the voice would say piano, and I would play notes, and I couldn't get a lot of the verbal skills out, but there was a phrase I said all the time. It's like, what in the world? I was like, and David's like, that doesn't sound like a piano.
Mm.
It was like, it's crazy. But yeah, when I got to meet Ray Charles, that was pretty cool. And that was before he passed away, actually. When he was working on his his final duets album. So that was a pretty exciting moment getting to finally share that with the world for the documentary, like the bonus features on the documentary. And the documentary, um, it feels like a while ago now. Um,
Few
I'm sorry,
years probably. Yeah, I don't know exactly off the top of my head. You
jumping
probably
ahead.
know better than me. Um, those sounds like wonderful experiences, and it looks like David Pinto specifically focuses on piano and teaching music to blind students. Is that correct?
Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm actually remembering. So, I studied jazz piano. I went to Rutgers University. I studied with the jazz pianist Stanley Cowell, um,
Don't know that
and
name.
he was a really wonderful teacher and really adept in the history of jazz and so on and so forth. Um, and once I was graduating and getting to get jobs and stuff like that, I got a job teaching piano lessons at a piano store. And I'm remembering they would give me the blind students to teach. So
Okay.
I think I had either three or four different blind students when I was younger as piano students, and it was very fun to work with them. Such a just I feel like there's a certain connection with the piano when of course not every blind person is going to be turned on by the piano, but when they are, it's really magical.
Yeah.
Um,
Did
I'd
did you
love,
teach
yeah, go.
when you taught the blind students, did you teach music by ear or did you give them braille music notation or was it
So I noticed that what would happen at this particular school is if there were any students that were sort of atypical, they would give them to me. I think I was sort of generally a little bit more patient, a little bit more creative, but I
uh-huh.
was not given any specific training on how to teach a blind student. So it was very improvisational on my part.
Uh-huh.
For the most part, it was we were using the same books that I might use for sighted students. And then, yes, I would teach them how to feel around on the keyboard and find the notes, and then teach them the
Postures
tunes just kind of by ear. Here's how it goes, and then they would
by
practice
ear.
it throughout the week. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I got to learn both ways. Both Grant and Richard Tesh, they were the ones that taught me how to read in Braille. And it's interesting because Braille, on one hand, it's pretty cool because I get to not think about, well, this is like this famous interpretation by Glenn Gould, and here's an interpretation by Andre Schiff, and they're going to play it completely different. It's the
Mm,
same notes, it's just a different, one person might go, or whatever.
mm.
No, scratchy throat. But um, actually, I find right around the time I started learning how to play the flute when I was 10. Yeah, 10. Um, I had this flute teacher named Toby Kaplan Stonefield, and she insisted on me to not listen to various interpretations of flute repertoire because each person is going to play it their own way and the vibrato and the breathing, like when does this person take a breath, when are they, are they going to speed up, are they going to slow down? So I would read the braille music, and it was very interesting because I find that flute music in braille is easier than piano braille music, because with piano it's like I have to read the braille, which is six dots, and it's how those six dots are used. It's hard. I wish there would be a way that I could demonstrate it, but essentially it's like you're I'm reading with one hand and I'm playing with the other,
Mm,
whatever. I'm just like miming it, but it with piano music, there's a lot of symbols that it doesn't quite make sense. Like it's funny with piano music, it's easier to learn by ear than read in braille. But with flute music, it's sort of the opposite. I love reading it because it's it allows me to interpret the same note choices than just listening to a recording by James Galway or John Pierre Paul, which they're both amazing flute players. So that's the classical stuff. But then when it comes to jazz, it's a very different thing because I love listening to interpretations by ear with jazz, and I did learn how to read charts like braille charts. Richard would give me braille charts of repertoire, and the way that the chords were written, they were very basic. So it's interesting. It sort of laid the foundation of the song, but I'm like, yeah, this is great, but I really want to hear the recordings by George Cables, and says, oh yeah, but you and or so, but it's Braille music is very interesting, and vocal music in Braille is interesting too because you get to one line you have like Handel's "Rejoice Greatly" from the Messiah. I got to learn that one time with my vocal coach Linda Odson. In what year was that? 2014. Right around the time we started filming Hearing is Believing,
mm.
I started taking voice lessons around that time. And um,
That's that's really interesting to hear about because I like I said I never got familiar with Braille music. Maybe it came up once or twice with the blind students that I worked with, but that's interesting as well as I remember having that experience too with a piano teacher. I had this great piano teacher at the end of high school. He was a conductor, a
wow.
symphonic conductor, and
Hmm.
I remember I was working on something like Clair de Lune or kind of one of these um, iconic pieces.
Hmm.
And I got really excited listening to a recording and trying to play it exactly like the recording. And he
Yeah.
called me out when I was playing it, and he was like, where did you come up with this interpretation? I was like, oh yeah, I listened to this recording and I'm doing it exactly like the person. And he said, don't do that. It was so very frustrating because I thought I had uncovered a trick on how to interpret music, and he shut me right down on that. But yeah, I
That's
totally hear where you're
funny.
coming from there.
Yeah, it's pretty funny how that happens because with a lot of piano music, it's easy for me to learn by ear, and in a lot of it's funny because sometimes I would hear one version where all the notes would be played very strongly, like one person would play it like okay, so Claire de Lune, um,
Yeah, play as much as you like.
yeah,
We'd love to hear you play a little bit.
yeah. So when I first heard Claire de Lune, it was on a compilation CD that I can't remember if I got that CD at public school. Was it I don't remember. Um, but right around the time I started taking piano lessons with Barbara Schneiderman when I was about 7, and David introduced me to her. So David introduced me to a lot of amazing piano teachers, and
Hmm.
Barbara was one of them. And I heard this recording of Claire de Lune it was very fast, and I thought it sounded really nice, and especially when it got to the part where it's like right, and then I go to Barbara's house this one time and she puts on another recording and it was so slow. And I was like, that's slow. And Barbara was telling me about interpretation. And she's like, and that's what we call interpretation because you heard that one recording that was very fast and the other one which I played for you was very slow. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Hmm.
And and then we would learn the song. Like she would play it for me, like certain moments that I couldn't remember. She would help me out, and she would tell me the dynamics that were written in the score, like pianissimo, and that means very softly, and then it gets softer and softer and softer and softer. I was like, that is so cool.
So, um, would you be interested to play a piece, like maybe a
Yeah,
composition of yours or a favorite composition? I don't know, jazz, classical, whatever. Let's hear a
yeah,
little bit. I know you
mhm,
love to play.
yeah. I wish I have to ask my friend Matthew Whitaker and Scott Chesworth, who's part of the accessibility team on this new recording program I'm using called Reaper, which is really amazing. It's a huge game changer for me. In contrast to what I used to use, Cakewalk Sonar on Windows, I'm now on a Mac computer using VoiceOver, so that makes things easier. And then the commands on the Reaper commands on a Mac, they're very similar to Windows, but I think they're a lot easier for me.
That's wonderful.
And I wish I could record this conversation in a way where I could have the piano track, like I could the piano going direct, and then you won't have to hear the squeaky pedal when
Oh, it's
I'm.
fine. It's fine.
Okay.
We'll put up with it.
Okay. Let's see here. And get my posture right here. Belly button on middle C. These little things.
Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you. That song is going to be on my upcoming solo piano improv album. Let's have some fun. That's the name of the song. And the album is going to be titled In the Moment because it was recorded. The whole album was recorded at Noise Nest Studios. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, in LA.
Hmm.
They have a really nice Yamaha C3 piano, and I also got to play on a Wurlitzer, which that piano is famously played by Ray Charles, Donny Hathaway, my friends Bob Malone, and I would love to talk about his music as well because he's one of my favorite piano players
Sure.
now, and he's an
That's
artist
Bob
that I was,
Malone.
yeah,
Yeah, tell us.
um he's John Fogerty's keyboard player, recording and touring since like 2011, I think. Like since 2011, he became John Fogerty's piano player, and but I know him for his solo material, which started in the 90s. He made it his first album is called The Darkest Part of the Night, and I would describe, well, I was first introduced to him through Anne Rinaldi, she's one of the organizers at this progressive rock festival that I go to called Prague Stock, and she manages a lot of people. And one of them is Bob Malone, and Anne says, I think you would really love his music because it's it's like jazz and the blues and rock and singer songwriter combined. And I got to hear him live at a pre-Prague Stock event in 2021, which was really cool. And immediately I was like, okay, I would love to get his CDs. And so I have a few of his CDs. He actually, was it the NAMM show? I think I went to, I can't, there was this one time where Bob and we chatted very briefly, and he said, I want to give you my Christmas album because, I've always had a fascination with Christmas music. And Bob says, I didn't want my Christmas album to be the Phil Spector Holly Jolly Christmas because those are great songs, but I wanted to write my own songs that reflect the times, and it's kind of it's there's a hint of sadness, but there's also that feeling of hope, and so I think you'd really like it. I love songs like You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, that, and immediately I was like, oh, cool. So we got to play the CD, and I've enjoyed it a lot, and I would go on YouTube and check out the rest of his catalog and his first album. What I love about his music is it's like an evolution lyrically, musically. Like his first two albums are sort of in the jazz meets Dixieland meets rock and roll meets the blues. Like I'm trying to think, like Randy Newman meets Ray Charles meets John Hyatt meets John Coltrane meets Dixieland.
Oh,
It's like Joe Cocker, Aretha Franklin, and it's really really cool stuff. And then you get to his third album, Like It or Not, and he's already doing like pop inspired songs. But what I love about his songs, it's not just, here's a pop song, it's got the famous chord sequence, but he'll throw in a surprise every once in a while, and that's the that's the kind of stuff that I love. And but he has an album called Mojo Deluxe, and that's sort of going back to the roots of the blues because the blues is one of his favorite worlds in music, and he's it's pretty cool stuff. I would love for you to check him out.
definitely. Maybe we can have him on the program or something. Maybe you can
Yeah,
connect us.
that would be pretty
Um,
cool.
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
Yeah,
from your style, what I like about your style is you're also quite connected with a lot of iconic kind of like evolutionary American music, right? You've got some of the fusion stuff, you are connected with that sort of American roots music. It's
Chick
really
Corea. Herbie
Yeah,
Hancock, Chick Corea, and contemporaries like Taylor Ixty and Esperanza Spalding, and then like classical composers like Aaron Copland. Just started diving into Charles Ives. That stuff is crazy.
excellent. Yeah, I have a piano tuning business in New York City. We've tuned for Esperanza Spalding at least a couple of times. That's fun.
That's
Um,
cool.
Now tell me, let's see, would you be interested in playing like another piece maybe that shows like a little bit of the diversity of the things that you're interested in, or like singing, or I don't know, like what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to come out here, how it's going to sound here.
Yeah.
She was a singer with a voice so pure. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's good enough. Let's go for it.
All right, cool. Um, See, I was thinking about doing this song. I've been currently working on a lot of sort of jazz vocal inspired projects. So my first album, Listen, that's sort of my jazz classical meets fusion. I was thinking like Pat Messini Group meets Jaco Pastorius, Weather Report meets trying to classical influences of Debussy in particular.
Mm.
Um, Freddie Hubbard, Miles Davis. Um, Sort of the jet, sort of like what I wanted to do was go in a direction Jaco Pastorius left off with his word of mouth. Jaco Pastorius, for those that might not know, he was a very famous bass player in the world of jazz fusion, and he pretty much was like a groundbreaker in the harmonics of the bass. I mean, this is stuff I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about it without playing on an actual bass right now. But if you go on SoundCloud and you look up a lot of my covers, I recreated "Portrait of Tracy," and that's the song there's a famous R&B song that um, is borrow the right word. That's originally a Jaco Pastorius piece called Portrait
Mm-hmm.
of Tracy. It sounds very different on the piano, but it's meant to be played on the bass. And when I
Yeah.
recorded it, I did a lot of
Fretless
overdubbing.
fretless bass is probably a great version
Yeah.
too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fretless bass is fun. It has such a vocal quality because the frets are taken out, so you could slide wah, and when I was working on my mom's album one day, around the same time I was working on Going Somewhere, which is my second album. That's the start of me getting into writing lyrics and listening to music from like Steely Dan and Prince and Stevie Wonder, Erykah Badu, Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's just like, but I was also working on my mom's album one day, and we did it all in my bedroom studio, which is where it's right here in this room. And there were a couple songs where I thought that it would be nice to feature fretless bass. One of the songs was called Used to the Rain, and there was an original demo recording that had this fretless bass part. My dad played guitar. Both my mom and dad are songwriters and guitar players,
Mm,
so I take a lot of cues from them. Yeah.
that's convenient. That's a nice combination.
So when I
You
was
you
working,
you were gonna maybe you were gonna play something
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and say, if you want you could say you were saying maybe we're gonna play something and sing. I don't know. You're welcome to
yeah.
whenever.
Mm-hmm. Let me just get the right sound here.
Go for it.
No, it doesn't sound right. But yeah, when I was working on Used to the Rain, that song was about homelessness, right? And what went through my mind was the story of Jocko during his final
Mm,
years. And I was listening to a lot of Joni Mitchell, the albums that Jocko participated on, like the one with Coyote and Hajira, and then the Mingus tribute album that he was a part of with Wayne Shorter and Herbie Hancock,
Mm,
and so I was in my brain, I was like, let me channel sort of like a what would Jocko do kind of a thing. And
amazing.
yeah, it's really nice, and we had a lot of fun working on it together. She played the guitar, 12-string guitar and vocals, and so it was pretty cool getting to work together because when I was a kid, I would listen to a lot of these cassette tapes with demo recordings of my mom's songs, and I kept thinking, even when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I'm like, one day I'm gonna be able to, like, right around the time David got me going on recording technology with Cakewalk, and I'm thinking, man, I would love to record my mom's songs with her one day. And once the technology improved and sound libraries and orchestral sounds and drum libraries and we got to do it together, it was pretty cool. The album is called One Day by Jeannie Flowers, so I would love for you to.
Wonderful. We will.
And it has us, and one of her songs is on the in the film too. It's called Finally. It's a different version, but I thought it would be cool to feature one of her songs in the movie, as well as one of my dad's songs, Serendipity, because I didn't want it to just be about Rachel Flowers. I wanted to
Mhm.
include my mom and dad's music, and I was very happy we got to do that.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I was thinking about vocal warm-ups. I'll play this song. This is gonna be on a an album that's still in a working progress. um,
Awesome.
I hope it's gonna sound good here.
Sounds great.
His squeaky pedal. Oh, that's not strong enough. Steinway sample. May I please have your attention? There's something I'd like to say. This may be surprising for some of you, but it just won't go away. I had a very vivid dream that a woman came to set the scene and fulfill her wildest dream at last. She was a singer with a voice so pure. Although her lyrics, I'm still not sure. Longing to form a special band with all her friends, but rejection took its place, and pain was on her face. I dreamt I met her at a record store with music playing like I've never heard before. Not even a stumble in the words she sang. So I asked, won't you please explain? While we were seated in a nice comfy chair, she put on a record with the sounds that filled the air. I suddenly realized what it was at last. I couldn't rose to a bass that touched the floor. Each word enunciated clearer than before. So why don't you come along with me and take my hand? You don't have to understand. I demand, won't you listen to the band?
Holy cow! That
Thank you.
was beautiful.
Thank
I would
you.
say it's the hallmark of great talent, you know, squeaky pedal, whatever. It comes right through. We can tell it's the
The squeaky
authentic.
pedal drummer.
Yeah. No, I
Thank
mean your musicality is really touching, Rachel, and
you.
it's a privilege to spend some time with you and hear your music. Hopefully, maybe we'll hear one more thing before we wrap up. I mean, we got
Yeah.
about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes left, so
Okay.
um maybe just before we hear something else, tell us about your relationship with music. I mean, are you spending, you know, a lot of your day playing and listening to music? Is that more, in your past and you kind of are just kind of bringing that up as you play? Do you perform out a lot? Do you go out and play at a bar or do a performance? What's your musical life like on a daily basis?
I don't know.
Do you play a lot each day, or do you have was that more like when you were younger, establishing the foundations?
I think it depends.
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
Um, and then in terms of singing, I'm
Hmm.
really blown away by, just the wonderful depth of quality you have of the way that you sing. Um,
Thanks.
how long did you take vocal lessons? Do you still train with the voice? I know you said you sort of took up singing at a certain point.
Yeah,
What's
it was
that
about,
journey been like for you?
I think um, I don't even remember, but
Well, when you met Linda is when you really got into singing.
hmm
Yeah, talk about that. Talk about meeting Linda.
yeah, I think it was 2014,
Okay,
and I,
about 10 years ago.
yeah, and I met Linda Otson. Um, her late son, Hans Otson, was a guitar player, and I used to play at a venue called Squashed Grapes in Ventura. And there's a new venue now called The Grape, but at the time it was this non-reverberated location. It was really nice, and I would occasionally play some Becca Stevens material during these jazz gigs or these jazz events, and I would perform with Hans and Adam Clark, who's the drummer at the time, and we would play a lot of material, and we would do a lot of instrumental stuff. But every once in a while, I would throw in a song by Becca Stevens and Taylor Ikesty. And Hans told me, my mom is a vocal coach, and I think you would I think you would learn a lot from her because she knows a lot about singing and vocal control. And I was like, yeah, that would be pretty cool. And at the time, I was listening to a lot of Minnie Riperton, the late great soul singer. She's A lot of people know the song "Loving You," yeah, but there's this one song in particular that I really enjoy, and at the same time, I'm a little nervous about it because of the double entendre in the chorus. But the way that Minnie would just sing it, and that it was Inside My Love. It was famously sampled by A Tribe Called Quest. That part in the song where it's like Q-Tip would sample that for A Tribe Called Quest's lyrics to go. So yeah, but I was really getting into her Minnie's music and learning about her tragic story and what she that just the how strong she was to keep going in her short time and before Mariah Carey was singing the high notes, Minnie was doing it. So and I liked listening to Mariah on the radio, but I've always been more of a Minnie type of a fanatic as a vocalist because she didn't over sing, like she didn't over belt her high notes. It was very almost operatic. Not a stuff like that. And Linda, she said that like I would present to her here's my favorite Minnie Riperton song or whatever, or Esperanza. And this was, I was listening to a lot of that contemporary stuff. And then Gretchen Parlato is another favorite jazz vocalist, and she has a very light singing voice, and she would sing very softly. And I remember the first time I heard her, the first time I heard Gretchen Parlato, because I was listening to a lot of strong singers when I was very little. I would listen to Shaka Khan, maybe not Shaka Khan, but a lot of these powerhouses, these singers that just belt these at the top of, la, and I was like, that's pretty impressive, but I can't sing like that. I'm not, what? So I was, when I started listening to Esperanza and Gretchen Parlato and then Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan but Linda was the one that not only taught me about diaphragm and breath control and breathing and vocal warm-ups, but she also showed me some classical repertoire. We would learn material from Mozart and Hoffman. I think there's a Facebook. Is it Facebook? There's that video of me working on I think it's called the Doll Song, and I'm working on it with this vocal coach from, was it the Czech Republic or something like
Yeah,
that?
I think so.
Yeah. And yeah, that was pretty wild. But yeah, Linda would show me all this great stuff, and she was one of those people that wasn't just, so you're just going to be an opera singer and that's it. She could tell that I've that the open-mindedness and all sorts of music, and she said what you could do is try writing a song and finding the techniques that you enjoy about this singer and that style or whatever,
Hmm.
and create something unique. And so yeah, she helped me a lot on things. And
I love hearing about your journey as a vocalist because I think it's very tempting to look at your talent and externally be like, oh, there's just someone who's naturally talented. It comes very naturally to them. But from the way that you explain your journey as a vocalist, it's very clear you started from where anyone might, being like, well, I don't think that I could do this, or I could do that, or I could do that. But you just put in a lot of time
yeah,
and effort, and you developed your skills to a point where you're able to become incredible. So it's very inspiring as well because it's like I said, it's very tempting to look at someone like you and say, "Oh, they're talented and naturally talented. This things come easily." But you've
mm-hmm.
clearly put in so much work to develop your skills, and it's very
Yeah,
impressive and inspiring.
thanks.
Would you be willing to play one more of your choice? I mean, something where you're singing or not, or any ideas?
Yeah. See, I got it on a Rhodes piano sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
5 minutes
Yeah.
already?
Oh, oh, by the way, I just had one question in that
Oh,
last one. When you were playing it, um, it harkened a little bit to my one and only love for me, that kind of famous John Coltrane, Johnny uh Hartman.
Johnny Hot, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Was that inspired by that at all, or just kind of happenstance?
Um, Actually, it was inspired by Frank Sinatra's recording of, is it Dancing on the Ceiling from the In the Wee Small Hours album.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it actually, so that I had this dream in 2022. I just listened to Amy Winehouse and her posthumous album, and I wanted to dive into Amy's influences and actually study Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald and Frank Sinatra. And the big thing that I got from Amy's influences was they enunciated their words in consonants, and that was something that, like, Amy, she kind of mumbled her words a lot, and then right around the time I started really listening to Frank Sinatra and Sarah Vaughan and Ella, I started to compose material in the style of, like, what kind of stuff was Amy going to do? What was she going to do before, before she passed? And I had this dream where Amy made this incredible album, and in the dream she didn't live the awful lifestyle. She was in the dream, she was just like how she started out in the very beginning,
Mm,
like on her first album, except in the dream Amy actually sang with the Sarah Vaughan operatic lightness, like Ella Fitzgerald. And so I thought, wow, if I just had this great dream. I'm going to write material. I'm going to listen to some Ella, Frank, Dinah Washington was another singer that Amy loved, and Dinah had the best enunciation. And so I'm like, okay, let me make sure that I'm going to record the material as close as I heard it in the dream and write lyrics based on what I remembered from the dream. And I made notes. I'm like, okay, the first song, it sort of had the mindset of Frank Sinatra's In the Wee Small Hours album, and it was very it the lyrics were sung similar to how Ella Fitzgerald would sing Gershwin, different from Sarah Vaughan's interpretation of Gershwin, because Sarah would extend a certain vowel of a word, like intention, where, like, oh, it really wasn't my attention. Which is great, but I'm like, yeah, I'd like to hear the words. So, like, with Ella, oh, oh, it really wasn't my intention to disregard convention. It was just an impulse that had to be obeyed. And I was like, wow, that is cool.
mm.
Yeah.
Wow, I like calling out the themes that we find on the program, but again, one I think that applies to you, which I've seen over and over again, is people that are great, they think about the details that
Mhm.
others don't.
Yeah.
They go into these tiny little nuances of how long is the syllable held and what's the
Yeah.
vibrato and what's the enunciation, and those things are also important, especially to
Mhm.
the highest level performers. I want to make sure
Mhm.
we have time for just that one more
Yeah.
song, so let's squeeze it in. What would you like to do?
Um, I'll do a song that's gonna be on my uh, In the Moment album. I'll do a little bit of the title track, In the Moment.
Wonderful. All right. Love
Thank
it. Thank
you.
you. Beautiful stuff.
You're
Beautiful.
welcome.
Um, I really love hearing you play, and it's such a privilege to have you share that with us. So yes,
You're
thank you
welcome.
so much.
You're welcome.
Um,
This was a lot of fun. I wish we had more time.
yes, me too. Well, maybe we'll have you back sometime. And are you live in the Los Angeles area? Is that what I gather,
North of Los
or
North of
you've
Angeles.
Los
just been there to do
Angeles.
recording?
North of Los Angeles.
North of Los Angeles?
I think so. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay, well that's great. Sometimes I make it to LA, so maybe we'll get a chance to meet up in person or something, or um, that'd be really cool.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, we're probably going to wrap it up, just due to our time constraints. We usually try to keep it to an hour, but yes, would love to have you back at any time.
Cool.
Love to hear updates on your music. If you want to send us any updates, we can let our audience know so they can, get your
Yeah.
albums and, follow along with what's going on. We're happy to share
Yeah.
about it.
Bandcamp. That's one of the main websites where we like to share my music, and then
Beautiful. Yeah, I see you've got your website, rachelflowersmusic.com. You're on Facebook, Rachel Flowers Music, SoundCloud, Rachel Flowers dash one, YouTube channel. Just look it up, and Instagram, Rachel Flowers Music. So definitely, I'm sure you got some new fans out of this. And we'll send out some emails about it and share about it. Anything else you'd like to leave folks with before we hop off the call?
I don't know. Just this was a lot of fun. I wish we continued the conversation because I felt like we were just getting started.
Yes, yes, me too. I could listen to you play all day, so we'll have to have you over and we'll make Rachel Flowers Radio for piano technicians master classes. That would be fun.
That would be fun.
And
Cool.
and maybe even you'll let me jam with you sometime. I don't know if you'll tolerate my playing, but could be fun. Um, all right, wonderful. Well, I'll walk out the program and we'll definitely keep up with what you're doing and keep in touch with you.
Sounds
Um, thank you to everyone who joined us today. We've reached the end of another musical journey at Piano Tech Radio Hour. Thanks to Rachel again. Thanks for our live audience. If you're checking us out on the streams, thank you for joining us. If you're listening to the recording, thanks for your time and attention. We always appreciate it. This program is brought to you by Piano Technicians Master Classes, cutting edge instruction for piano industry masters without leaving your home. If you joined us today by signing up for this program individually, hey, make your life more convenient. Subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour, $16 a month. You get recording of today's session in a member area, automatic registration for each week's new session. Sign up at bit.ly/join PTRH, bit.ly/join PTRH. Make sure to check out the podcast, Piano Tech Radio our blog on Substack, where we highlight some of our advanced concepts such as regulation, voicing, piano rebuilding, history of the piano action, really cool topics, advanced topics. And check us out on socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I think that covers all the basics. Thank you again, Rachel, for joining us. I'll just
welcome.
end the Zoom call right here. If you
Okay.
guys want to jump back on the Zoom real quick after we jump off, we can do a little wrap up. But I'll end the call right now just to make a clean break with our audience today. Thank you everyone for joining. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Have a